way, David.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for your patience. Appreciate you all for joining us today. I think what I'd like to do is if we could just take a moment, and if we all want to go around, and if you just like to say your first name and what you thought of the book. Now on my screen to my right, I see Judy B. Would you like to introduce yourself and just tell us what you thought of the book?
Well, my name is Judy, and I liked the book. I thought it was really interesting. I thought the characters were interesting. I thought it was good.
Thank you. I see Carolyn Nunn here next.
Good morning. I enjoyed the book. Some of the language I didn't care for, but I thought it was very good. It was very relatable. Because my children grew up in that at that time frame.
Great. Did you feel like you might have known some of those characters? Like, oh yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Now next on my screen, I see DALEM.
Oh, I don't know why I don't have a video. I have the camera up. It's not, we're not connecting on video with some people. But I'm Moss. I'm a retired newspaper man, worked with Judy Bryant down there, Judy B. We won't.
Dale.
I exposed her name. I'm sorry. Now she's mad at me. But retired newspaper man. Last number of years, I've been a member of the library board. So I've gotten to know David and Harriet and others through that, and Judy through that thing, and book pretty well. I thought the characters were indeed relatable. I agree with Carolyn. They were flawed people, regular people, and families that have their ups and downs, to say the least. I think are real families, and that the writer was really good at that. Not everything's hunky dory all the time, and I think that came through really well. It was good, well written in that regard.
Excellent.
Hi, Dale.
Hey, Judy.
Thanks, Dale. Next, I have I see a Moto E. MOTOE. Not sure. Maybe the person can't hear us. We can come back, or maybe we can't hear them. Next I see Kathleen.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
Okay, great. I think I'm Moto E. I tried it on my phone too. I'm experimenting. Yeah, I enjoyed the book. Very relatable, down to earth, people I knew.
Very nice. Next I see Sharon. I think you're muted, Sharon.
Sharon doesn't want to talk.
Okay.
It wasn't her cup of tea. She likes mysteries.
Oh, gotcha.
She didn't enjoy the book as much as I did.
Makes sense. Now, do we have a mystery book club, Harriet?
We do.
Oh, okay. Is Sharon on that? Nice. What about Rich?
Oh, that's me. Can you hear me? This is Ellen.
Oh, hi, Ellen.
I can't. I guess what I want to say about it is that I enjoyed it very much. We had it in January for my book club. There were mixed results on people's opinions. I really would be interested in, as we get into the discussion, hearing what people thought about the different characters. It was very interesting to me how our group picked different children to like and dislike. No, very few people agreed on the children that they thought were the most, I guess, successful in life in some way or other. But I enjoyed the book. I thought it was realistic, and I like books that talk about how people meet life and how they deal with it, I think is what I thought was best about the book.
Excellent. Well, that is a great question. So what do y'all think? Like, who was your favorite character? Don't be shy.
I liked Ryan. He seemed like the go-getter in the family.
Anybody else?
I have to say, I like Ryan as well. He was my favorite character. The fact that he started out with one career and then through maybe partly his fault, he then went on to an entirely different career, which led to other choices. But I really like that, his character.
That's a something I was thinking about when I was reading the book. After he had the problem with with the student or whatever, I was like, oh no, his life is ruined. What's he gonna do now?
Yeah, I felt that way too.
I appreciated the woman that was badly hurt in a car wreck and still sort of found a way to have a happy life and kind of chartered her own course. I appreciated that. I can't remember her name.
Tori.
Tori, yeah.
Yeah, she was very interesting. I think I would have liked to known her a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
Well, one of the characters that was interesting to me was Anita. And I can't say I liked any characters better than any other, but Anita was interesting to me because it brought up the idea of those four children, who were the successful ones in life, maybe. And it was interesting in my group, several people picked Anita because they thought she was an organizer. She got everything done. She got, she was the successful one. But I don't know if that's exactly true or not. And I guess I'm always wondering how do we decide who's having a successful life and who isn't? And I mean, to me, that was kind of the essence of the book, is looking at people and how they deal with their lives. Does anybody, I mean, to me, maybe Anita was the least likable of all the children, but that's me.
What I liked about Anita, the fact that when she was growing up, it was her beauty that she was known for. And then you realize how smart she is. Because she even said when she was in high school, she wasn't really an achiever. But when she takes the money out of the bank and gives it to her family, you realize she is a very caring person and has so much more going for her than just her beauty. And she didn't think she was still beautiful, but she was. She was even more beautiful. So yeah, I like her character as well.
This is Kathy. I like Janine. She wasn't in it that much, but she spoke her own truth. She had some spunk.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, the Ryan's original girlfriend. were introduced
Yeah.
to? Okay.
I lost track of her. I had to go back and find out at the end who she was because I couldn't remember where she came in because she didn't play such a big role.
Did you all catch that part where isn't Ryan on some vacation in Italy and there's an old book that has a poem in there about him?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I thought that was kind of interesting.
I thought it was interesting too that she left the book open at the end where he was divorced, and he could have reconnected with her if Jean Thompson had continued the story. That's what I got out of it. I just kind of left it open to him reconnecting with her.
I thought they tried to do that and just it didn't work out. Didn't they meet and then they set up a time to get together and,
True, but that's while he was still married.
oh, okay.
At the end of the book, he's divorced. Him and Chip bought the farm, and I just thought it left it open for them to get together down the road.
Yeah.
Make up your own ending.
Choose your own adventure, right?
That's correct.
Anybody else have any characters that they were interesting to him?
Well, I think his name was Chip, the sort of down and out hippie guy that showing up. I mean, obviously he wasn't what you would call a success, but he was an interesting guy. And I thought it was interesting that Ryan stayed friends with him.
Mhm.
You know, over the years, they were able to still do that.
Well, they were cousins. They were cousins. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he did kind of seem to have a soft spot in his heart for old Chip.
yeah, he did.
And Chip
I
seemed
don't
pretty,
know what Chip was doing when we didn't see him on there. Like, what did he do all the time?
A little vague, yeah.
Yeah,
Chip seemed pretty happy, you know?
he
He didn't have
did.
much, but he seemed pretty happy.
Well, that's a good point. It's kind of like what Ellen was talking about. What makes a successful life? What is that? Is it I mean, like you say, Chip did seem pretty happy. Is he the success?
That's because he was on pot all the time.
Here, here.
I'm
He wasn't
glad
just high on life, huh?
I'm glad somebody brought up Chip because it's been a while since I've read the book, so I had kind of forgotten about him. But I think of all the characters at that period of time, I probably knew more Chips than I knew any of the other characters that she had in the book. And I think you're right that in a way he was a happy person. I think he was unhappy in some ways too, but I think he just kind of drifted along in life.
Why do you think he didn't want to be called Chip, wanted to be called Ray? Was it because he didn't want to be known as, Chip off the old block? I'm serious.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, I was puzzled when he said, "Call me Ray."
He wanted to be his own person.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, when you think of all the Vietnam vets with PTSD in this world, you can sort of understand where he's coming from. I mean, that was his experience. It was different from anybody else in the book.
I agree with you.
I do like his little note that he writes, Ryan, on page 23, where he says, "Hey, Lamb Chop, how's the college boy? You any smarter now? Strange days have found us, yes, indeed. I won't lie to you, there's been some skanky goings on recently. I've seen amazing sights and some rotten nights. Not everybody out here is a child of God. Plenty of people who take real pride in being a lowlife. But enough of the sad songs. I'm doing pretty good here in Seattle. Was staying with an old Army pal for a time, but we had a parting of ways. And now I'm living with this girl I met. Her name is Deb. And if it ain't love, it'll have to do until the real thing comes along. She works at a home health care place, and she's trying to get me to be a driver, delivering oxygen tanks and wheelchairs and crutches. Me, your friendly neighborhood wheelchair guy. There's even a uniform. So that's the news, but mostly I wanted to tell you about this time a few months back when I wound up in the middle of exactly nowhere, some big brown field in one of those big brown states, either Montana or Idaho. Anyway, one of those places that sound more interesting than they really are. And I won't bore you with how I got there and how I got out, but all I can tell you is there's this moment of purity. It's absolutely the right word when you realize how alone you are in the universe. Come out and visit sometime. There's things you ought to see, Chip. I got a kick out of that one.
It's been a while since I read the book, but Chip reconnects later in the book with the not really stepson, doesn't he? And that's a and ends up being something that where he was really helpful with someone. But then there's another scene where he's basically robbing people. So he was kind of a mixed character.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he did go out of his way to try to connect his I don't know, I guess it was his girlfriend's son with Tori. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So there was basic goodness in him, but he also got off the track at times, I think, and was capable of doing things that weren't so good, like a lot of people.
Well, it's interesting that he's the one that was able to see that Tori, that she had a future and that her talent could be more than just making things, at home.
Yeah.
It was Chip that put that together.
Yeah, there were some depths to Chip. He just had gotten, and I think maybe what you said about PTSD and all of those things are probably wrapped up in him.
Yeah.
Well, there's that one scene towards the end where he starts destroying that person's apartment.
Oh yeah, I've forgotten that.
So that's definitely one of those things you're like, oh, maybe he does have some PTSD issues for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody would have even thought about that then, I don't think.
Mm-mm.
Probably not. I think they had a term. They said something. People might be shell shocked.
Yeah. What about the mother? I was of two minds about her, if I remember correctly. I couldn't figure out whether she was a good mother or a bad mother.
I think she was a typical mother of her time. That's how I would say it.
Well, there's a quote in the book that says, I think it's on page 105. It says, Anita feels that she and her mother are always on the verge of a conversation. Is this what it means to be a wife, a mother, a woman? Is that what is expected? Should I have gone about it differently? Why don't they ever actually have that conversation? So it's almost like she's on the verge of this very deep conversation, but then it never happens.
In a way, I felt the mother was needy because her daughter always, in the morning, she would always say, Mom is going to call, and if I don't pick up, she's just going to keep calling and calling and calling. She didn't respect the time that she had, but then her mother missed the grandchildren. So, I mean, I can see Anita's point of view, and then I can see her mother's point of view. And possibly if Anita hadn't then gone on to get a real estate license and make changes, she might have become more like her mother. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Or maybe her mother, had so many regrets that maybe that's why she was somewhat clinging. And plus, of course, she had to take care of Tori. But I just want to make one statement about the PTSD. When Ryan is teaching as a graduate student, and Megan, who comes to his apartment, when she pitches or throws the glass down and it shatters, because she was an orphan or because she was adopted, do you think she had a form of PTSD? Does that make sense? Y'all remember that scene?
Mm.
Which subsequently led to his being dismissed, and then he went on to become an IT. But anyway, I just wondered about that.
Well, I think I don't specifically remember that scene, but I think, PTSD doesn't, I think we think of it just as war and that sort of thing that you've gone through. But I think we react to anything that has been hugely upsetting in our lives and flash back to that incident or whatever, and it changes a lot of things for us.
I agree.
So I think you may be right. As I said, I don't remember that, but that makes sense.
Yeah, I wish he would have been. I was in the scene at the time. I wish he would have been nicer to that student. You know, I think saying, "Oh, there's no way you're going to get an A. There's no chance." I was like, "Well, she has, come on, give her a little credit." I didn't at that part. I didn't really care for that.
I didn't think she was a likable character, but she was a minor character. So,
You know, I mean, I don't think you should tell people they have no chance.
I agree.
But
I
then
think
again,
He
Oh,
was
go
out
ahead.
of his element. He didn't know what he was about himself
Yeah.
as far as teaching or being a PA.
that's true. He kind of said, "Oh, I'm not really good at this," kind of thing. So
And he,
maybe on the flip side, his being brutally honest with her caused her to freak out, which caused him to get kicked out of school, which caused him to find a different career and probably be a multimillionaire. So who knows? It's funny what our choices can do.
I don't know how you all feel about this, but I felt throughout the book, Ryan never really seemed happy. Like he was always searching, no matter what he was doing. He wasn't completely happy. He was not really present. Well, of course, he was present with his daughter, but even then, does that make sense to everyone? He was in his head so much.
Something my camera's screwed up.
Well, maybe because he had so many expectations placed on him, he never felt that he was worthy. He was always searching for something.
And he was brilliant too, very, very smart.
You know, maybe it's because he was the narrator of the story. It seems like we knew more about him and what he was thinking. And I wonder if that's why he seemed, you know, less happy.
Get that up. Why doesn't it stop?
Hold on. I can't get it to go away.
Yeah. Even in the beginning of the novel, he seems not real satisfied with life.
I really thought that the author did a good job in the beginning with the descriptions of him and his thoughts as a teenage boy. I thought that was very accurate.
Yeah, it's interesting. He says, this is on page 11. He says, "What really counted was the life you made for yourself and the person you decided to be." And then this is a study question. It says, "Does this prove to be true?"
Well, he grew up in that strict Lutheran family.
I think that's a question everybody has to decide for themselves, probably.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
if you,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you live up to what you think your potential is, then you're a successful person, whether other people think you are or not. Follow your own, and if you follow a code of ethics that you think is the right code of ethics, then yes, you are successful in your life.
My grandma said, "Always do your best."
Yeah.
I thought that was good advice.
Yeah. Being human is a very complicated thing.
Agreed.
Sure is.
Don't you wish that you could see people's intentions? I mean, so many times we get it wrong. Somebody says something that you take offense at and they didn't mean it to be that way. Or in the other way, you know, they say really nice things and they don't mean those either. So it would be, and for people who, you know, have problems even understanding facial tics, I guess, or whatever, it must be really difficult.
I think it's very hard now with everyone wearing masks.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they say you have about a 50% chance of guessing right.
I don't think it's that high. And I think some people are better at hiding what they really think than others too.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's a skill. It's a skill you have to learn, maybe.
Maybe the ones that hide are the ones that are, I guess, the most afraid that they may be made fun of. The people.
Yeah, that could be.
so should I ask you a study question or two?
Sure.
What about the title? I want to know what you think. How does the title relate to the story? The year we left home.
I have no idea. Because when I started reading it, I just really thought it was going to be that year. That was it.
Well, I don't think the year was 365 days. I think it was a lifetime.
And I guess the motivations of people, whether they're positive or negative, you know, why does someone leave home? You know, why do they come back?
Yeah, I kept waiting for that. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I kept waiting for that defining moment of when I was going to understand the title, but I never did.
Then, of course, I guess you could say, do we ever really leave home?
I was thinking the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I guess physically we do, but.
Dale!
Hey, Dan.
Sorry, I was out of commission for a minute there. Trying to figure out. Sorry about that.
I think that is a great point, though. I think we do kind of take a little bit of home with us wherever we go.
David,
Okay.
sorry. I was going to ask you, because you, like me, do not live in the area you grew up in. When you think of home, and this is unfair because you've only been here a little while, do you think of Illinois as home? Do you think of Washington as home?
I probably do. I probably still think of the little farmhouse I grew up in Illinois as home. You know, I think I say, oh, I'm going home, you know, and I haven't lived there. I haven't lived there, yeah.
Does that irritate your wife?
Probably doesn't notice.
We have lived in this area for almost 40 years. My husband grew up here, but I still say that where I grew up is home. And I always say I'm going home. And over time, it has become very irritating to him. I don't think it's going to change, though.
I bet your mom did too, didn't she?
Now, where did you grow up?
In South. Oh, sorry. Somebody. I can't. I think I'm talking over somebody. I hope not. Okay, David, were you asking me where I grew up?
Where did you
okay. Just not all that far from here, but southeastern Indiana, Franklin County, which is on the Ohio border.
Oh, okay.
But I also grew up on a farm, and I think that you have that tie to the land in a way that maybe city people don't. I'm not sure.
Possibly. That kind of ties into a question here. It says, what makes a place home?
Ooh.
Your heart.
What about you, Dale? What makes a place home?
I've lived the same place my whole life, so I have a bad perspective. Traditions, history to some degree. I was going to make a really quick point. We were talking about what you were talking about before too, but there's this TV commercial that's on now that it's to sell insurance, but they're trying to make a point of teaching people to not be like their parents.
Oh,
If you've seen that commercial, it's on all the time. I think there are worse things to be than at least somewhat like your parents. You know, you can pick and choose to somewhat, but you know, my parents were pretty good role models, and I think that this book was sort of about that, of picking and choosing, and how you're, you know, what about home counts and what doesn't need to count, and the same way with your folks and your brothers and sisters, right?
I think that's a really good point.
But I haven't moved around, so I'm bad to talk about what's home. I don't know any better, you know.
But here's a question for you. Are urban and rural places and people as divided as we might believe?
well, right now it seems to me like everybody's divided. So I don't know that right now it's more along political lines, but
And those,
maybe it may be an understanding. There may be some divisions.
and those lines are urban and rural a lot these days, the political.
Mhm. No, that's true.
Now, what would we consider this area? Are we urban or rural, you think?
I would say urban, but if I was from New York, I'd say we were rural.
Yeah. I think it's in flux.
Yeah, combination.
Yeah, I think what's kind of neat about almost anywhere in the United States is you pretty much, if you drive about an hour, you can get pretty rural pretty quick. You know, we went to that was a maple syrup festival, and my son is the first time he ever saw the Amish, and he thought that was pretty awesome with the horse and buggy.
Yeah.
I think we all have the same core values, but perhaps we go about achieving them differently.
Now here's a question for you. This is kind of a deep one. To what extent is the American dream available to all citizens?
Yeah.
I guess, first of all, you might want to ask yourself, well, what is the American dream? Is it changed any? Is it the same as it's always been? Or do you think it's evolved over time?
I think it depends on who you are. I don't think there is one American dream. I think it's different for different people.
Yeah. I think that has changed in time, that people are, like in the book, you can kind of go their own way. And I think maybe our parents and grandparents did sort of have it was sort of more narrow what success was, don't you think, in the American dream? And now, you know, my kids' generation change jobs all the time. They have all kinds of, you know, they do all kinds of, you know, they question everything, you know, and I think that's good.
Yeah, my wife always likes to talk about how, like in her grandmother's day when, the president came on TV to speak, regardless of who the president was, everyone stopped and they said, oh, we need to give respect. This is our president. And I think people were much less questioning back then of
Yeah.
authorities and institutions.
Yeah.
I've always been a strong Democrat, and I've always respected the office of the president, but the last 4 years, I lost all respect. It made me realize it's just a human being in that office, and that was hard to swallow. It was just, I guess, maybe like seeing a religious person, like a rabbi or a priest, who molests a child, and you lose all respect. It really is hard to with that. Things that we grew up admiring, and then we realize everything is different. But in terms of the American dream, depends on what we've been through in life. If we've had an illness or, let's say we've lost people that we've loved. So our view of the American dream may change. When you're young, you may have one view, and then when you get older, you may have a different view. Does that make sense?
I think the American dream is out there. It just depends on what your definition of the American dream is. And I think it's out there for anybody that wants to work for it. It's just whatever their definition is.
I guess it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before about, how do you define success in life?
I think our computers are so close together.
Things aren't just black and white anymore. There's so many shades in between.
Yeah, I agree.
That's true. Now, here's a question more specific about the book. It says, Martha's words at Anita's wedding startled Ryan. You can never tell looking at it from the outside how miserable people can be in marriage. How are her words prophetic? Do you think she was referring to her own marriage, which seems so happy?
Well, there's the operative word, seems.
Yeah. Well, I think she was talking about her own marriage. What else does she have to compare it to? I mean, and she was of that generation where the women were wives and mothers, and that's what they did, homemakers, That's all.
But
Yeah.
was Martha the wife, was that the couple that had the farm and were hard workers and all of that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I liked them. I mean, I liked what she did with them because they were the ones that surprised him so when they got up and danced and had such a good time dancing.
Yeah.
And I think that was maybe her way of saying that life is hard for a lot of people. That doesn't mean that because you work all the time that you can't also love each other and have fun together. You may not be able to as much as other people do, but there was that spark. There was still that spark there with them. And I think she missed her husband greatly when he died, which she wouldn't have done if they hadn't been happy on some level together. I think in general, we sometimes misjudge people who don't, show their emotions easily or any of those things. So I don't know.
I like on page 3 Ryan's description of her and her husband. They believed in backbreaking labor followed by more labor and in privation, thrift, cleanliness, and joyless charity. If you wanted a tree taken down or a truck winched out of a ditch or a quarter of a cow package for your meat locker, you called a Pearson. If you wanted lighthearted company, you called someone else.
Yeah, but remember, he was just a teenager when he was observing that.
But yeah, I thought it was pretty neat, like you were saying, how they ended up kind of cutting a rug out there on the dance floor. People weren't really expecting that.
Yeah. Well, and his description is of both of them so that they were alike.
Well, there again, I think you've got that strict Lutheran Nordic upbringing,
Yes.
which didn't allow evidently for much feelings. But there again, people in those days didn't express their feelings. You made a commitment and you stick to it.
And there are worse things than that.
Yeah. It gets back to some of the stuff we've been talking about, about ambition and what matters in life. And, do you want to travel the world, or do you just enjoy where you are and being the best spouse you can be and the best parent and the best worker, and, not much worrying whether anybody is impressed by that or not.
And at that time, for those people, that was the only way they could survive. I mean, they didn't have the, in their own minds anyway, didn't have the luxury of saying, well, I'm not going to work this summer. I'm going to run off to someplace and enjoy myself. They didn't, because otherwise they would have starved.
Yeah.
It's, as I'm sitting here listening to you, I'm thinking about the fact that the kids all seem to want to get out of the house and have a different life. They didn't want that kind of life we're describing. And yet by the end of the book, most of them had sort of come full circle, and the ones that were able to find that balance between responsibilities and the good and the bad of marriage and all the rest of it were the ones that were happier.
Yeah, you're right. And you're right. They did come full circle, and it kind of brought them, if not always physically, brought them kind of back to where they'd started in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least those values that they'd started with.
Yeah. How much to change, how much not to change. The one woman's her husband, right, who was kind of a jerk and a drunk.
Old Jeff.
Yeah. And he didn't seem like one of the great husbands.
He was an interesting character, because when you first meet him in the book, he seems to have it all, and she seems to gravitate for him because she thinks he's going to be a very successful person. And then you wonder what happened to him. And my take on it was that maybe she was not a good influence on him. Maybe he had a hard time living up to everything she expected of him. I don't know. I thought he was an interesting character.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was typical of someone who has a boyfriend in high school.
Oh, yeah.
You want the athlete, the cute guy, the blah, 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 the one you think's going to be the most successful. And that's sort of what the direction she was going in, but it didn't turn out that way. I mean, who knows what made him have those issues, but it could have just been life,
Well, I personally would have had a hard time living with Anita. To me, she's too much like my bossy older sister. And 24 hours a day of her might have been a lot. I don't know.
Grab you to drink.
It could have.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, or to be charitable, maybe he realized that he didn't have the abilities that everybody had said he had, in high school. And that's a pretty tough pill to swallow, I think, for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
For anybody, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I heard something one time where somebody said it was the moment in life where you realized you were not the smartest person in the world, like you thought you were.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
oh.
Now, the first time you realize that, it's the hardest, but unfortunately, you have to realize that many, many, many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, she probably didn't help us drinking much when she said, you're getting fat.
Yeah. Yeah,
Stuff
she
like
was.
that. That's just,
And I don't think she meant to be as mean as she was sometimes, but she was really kind of mean.
Neither one of them were happy campers.
No, they didn't belong together.
yeah, I think it's kind of interesting with, is, talking about the, if you want to call it like the Lutheran work ethic, Ryan didn't, you have to really be kind of a grinder, so to speak, to, computer program for 20 hours a day.
Mm.
And, same with Anita, selling those houses and stuff. It's not an easy thing to do, so, both of them, they might have looked down at that work ethic when they were younger, but I think it kind of reigns or, holds true as they get older.
What I found interesting about Anita and her mother, in the beginning when they go to Martha's house and she's dying or she's close to dying, and her mother wanted to believe everything was just wonderful. And then when the mother takes her son, the grandson, and they go outside with Pat, and she and Martha, Anita and Martha can really connect, and you realize that, Martha's aware of her situation, and the mother didn't want, Anita's mother didn't want to talk about, she just skimmed over that. Oh, everything's wonderful. And you realize that Martha's aware of her condition, and she and Anita really connect. And you realize Anita is very strong, and her mother is strong too. But I think Anita is more realistic, that she didn't want to keep, putting up with her husband's drinking. She wanted more. Anyway, I love this book and love the characters. I think the writer, Jean Thompson, is just amazing. And I want to read, you want to read more of her things? That's what I came away with.
Yeah.
I want to read
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I think I would.
We have 5 minutes, everyone. I just want to say thank you to David for facilitating. He's done an amazing job. And thank you all so much for tuning in today. Anyway, it just means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Harriet.
Thanks, Harry.
Yeah, Harriet set this whole thing up. She got the grant and booked the program. So yeah, she's done a fantastic job. The publicity for it's quite a very cool thing to do. I think hopefully we'll be able to do more of these community reads. I think they're kind of a special thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
Are there other libraries that were doing the same thing?
I believe it was 28 libraries in Indiana were
Okay.
reading this book,
Okay.
which is pretty neat.
I'm sharing my book. I have about 3 people that want to read it.
We still have, I think, six or 7 books left for anyone who wants one. Not all of them were taken.
Okay.
We did pretty good. I think they gave us 90.
We did. We got 90.
So that's like,
40 the second. Yeah.
so hopefully people are sharing them with their friends like y'all are doing.
And tell your friends about this, and I'll send out the link. It's being well, of course we know it's being recorded. So